Good evening.
We want to welcome you to Table Time. I'm Bill Barnett, pastor at Union Hill Baptist Church, and
I'm Nancy Barnett.
we're excited to be talking to you tonight. We're going to be talking tonight about a subject that's really well known, the subject of love.
Ooh.
And before we get to that, let me mention a couple of things that are important, especially to our Union Hill Church family. This Sunday morning, the 31st of May, will be our first Sunday back together in the sanctuary, worshiping at 8:30 and at 11 o'clock. It's also a very special day because it's a celebration for all of our graduates, our high school and college graduates. So it's going to be a very, very special day, and we're looking forward to getting back together. We will practice the social distancing. You're not required to wear a mask, but it could be recommended. We ask you to enter and leave from the front sanctuary doors. That just makes it a little easier to control. We have put out hand sanitizer, so we're taking all those precautions. I will say this, if you're not feeling well, if you're sick, please don't try to come this week. And also, if you're in that high risk category, don't feel obligated to come this week. There'll be a lot of opportunities to come. If you want to stay home and watch the video, we will be streaming at 11 o'clock on Sunday. In fact, Nancy, we're going to keep doing that sort of long term. So our homebound folks, our friends from out of town that are watching, they'll be able to continue to kind of be a part of Union Hills worship. So we're really excited about that coming up this next Sunday.
Good.
Okay,
Are we ready to start tonight?
I'm ready.
Well, tonight we're going to talk about love and the things that we love.
Yeah.
It could be a place, it could be a book, it could be anything. So I'll let you start. What's one thing that you love?
Well, Nancy, I was talking about this before. We say love like I love my mom, I love apples, I love hot dogs,
Right.
But one thing I do love Tex-Mex, like we had back in Texas. That was really delicious. And then I also love Texas sunsets. I just recently got back from visiting out in Texas and seeing my brother Wayne. And so seeing those long sunsets, I enjoy that.
Oh, good.
I love that.
Good.
How about you?
Well, one thing I love is watching birds and listening to them sing.
Mm-hmm.
I like to imagine that they're singing praises to God.
Yeah.
Of course, birds have different calls, and so sometimes they sound like they're fussing. I don't know if they're fussing at their children or their mate. I don't know, but I really like listening to birds sing.
Mm-hmm. Well, another thing I like history.
Yes,
And,
he does.
I don't like all the dates. I think when I was in school, memorizing the dates kind of turned me off. But I love the stories that fill out history, that flesh it out, that make it living. And so I like history. And you may have some places you like.
Yes.
You may have some things you like. And if you want to just give us a little word on Facebook or YouTube, we'd love to hear from you tonight about the kind of things that you love.
Well, another thing I love is reading a book on a rainy or cold day. You get a cup of hot tea or something hot and just curl up and escape into a fantasy of something.
I've seen you do that. It's real relaxing.
Get Afghan.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, love is a major topic for all of us. Every culture writes. In fact, I read Nancy, one author said that if you had all the books written on love, it would fill a library.
Wow.
And so there's a lot of been written on love. But we want to talk about what God says about love tonight. And probably the most famous verse in the Bible that talks about love, Nancy, is John 3:16. And I think most of us know that. In fact, if you're watching, you'd like to join us, we're going to just say that together. Join us. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. That's a great verse. It's the gospel in a nutshell, they say.
Another verse on love that I really like, it's short, it's John 4:19, and it says, we love him because he first loved us.
It's powerful. It's powerful.
Simple but powerful.
Yeah. I think in that same book it says God is love. God is love. So that's a beautiful statement. Now, I'm going to just share a little bit about one of the chapters in the Bible that really is called the love chapters. 1 Corinthians chapter 13. It's only about 28 verses. It's relatively short. but people turn to this verse as a way of understanding God's love. And if you want to look at that chapter in 3 parts, the first part talks about the necessity of love. The second part talks about the description of love. The third part talks about the durability of love. Now, when you talk about the necessity of love, it talks in there and says, but the Apostle Paul is writing to the church at Corinth, it says, if I had the ability to speak with the tongues of angels, but if I have not love, I'm nothing. He says, if I have the faith to move mountains, but I have not love, I am nothing. He says, if I give all that I possess and even my body to be burned and have not love, I am nothing. So this love that we talk about tonight, and the love that the world needs, is the necessity of pleasing God and walking with God.
It just hit me all over when I was looking at this, because we had talked about doing this. Those first verses, I've read this many, many times, but those first verses, it just hit me full force again, just how necessary love is.
Yeah, absolutely. And God's design is for us to experience and to share this kind of it. The word is agape. If you look at the Greek, this word love is not eros, it's not the passion, it's not filial, it's not the family love. It's a love that comes from God only, but He gives it to us through the person of Jesus Christ. And so it's the necessity of this kind of love. And really, I believe deep down, people are hungry for this kind of love, because we were created for God in this kind of love. Now, that's the necessity. The next part talks about the description of love. And some of the positive things it says about love is that love is patient. It says that love is kind. I just want to say this. Don't tell your spouse that you love them and then be mean. Don't tell your parents you love them and then disrespect them. Because real love is kind, it says here. And also it rejoices in truth. It says that love is not rude. It says love is not selfish. And that love does not rejoice in evil but in truth. So the first part is the necessity of love, and then the description of love. I really enjoy the last part of this. It talks about the durability of love. Here's some things it says, Nancy, about God's love. It says that this love, agape love, bears all things, that it hopes all things, that it endures all things. And it says that this love never fails.
Wow.
You know, sometimes when people fall in love and they get married, and then they reach a juncture, a crossroads in their marriage or in their life, and one of them says, well, I just don't love you anymore. You know, the sad thing to me is that their love, if that's the kind of love they base their marriage on, they missed the beginning. Because I believe that the strongest marriage is the marriage that's founded on agape love. And that love is unconditional. So it endures all things. It hopes all things. It never fails. And the last part of that chapter says, these things remain: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love.
Goodness.
It's a great topic tonight, Nancy. It really, really is. Now, you were going to tell
I
me
was going to
something
move on to what we're going to talk about now. Next is love languages. You know, our goal as Christians is to let the love of Jesus flow through us to other people. But have you ever met someone and you just said, well, I just don't know what to do? Maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's a child or a coworker, and you just say, well, I just don't know how to deal with this person. But this 5 love languages, you may have heard of that before. It is just a way to let God love people through us.
Yeah. In fact, the 5 love languages talks about the ways that we give and receive love.
Right.
You know, one of the interesting things that I've seen over the years in counseling is that I'll have a couple come in and one will say, well, they don't love me anymore. And the other person say, I love you as much as I ever did. And what sometimes is the case is that one is trying to love that person the way they want to be loved and not the way that person needs to be loved. So that's the love language. It's like 2 people speak in different language. If you're trying to give and receive love in ways that other person doesn't understand or receive it, then you're missing out. And so Dr. Chapman, Gary Chapman, has made this book, and this book is called The 5 Love Languages. And again, Nancy touched on this. This is not about marriage only. This is not about husbands and wives, but it's about all of us. And he has written specifically to how children receive love language, how friends receive love language. So this has application far beyond the spouse, the husband and wife.
And even, well, not even, but if you go on the website, excuse me, there's a little test, a quiz you can take to determine what your love language is, and maybe someone else living in your household, that'll help you. It's just kind of fun and it's really helped me. It really has, and not learning to love you, honey, but it's just helped me in a lot of different areas and ways. Okay, we better move on.
Okay.
All right, so we'd like to go over the 5 love languages briefly. And so the first one is words of affirmation. And these are words of kindness, words that build up. And I have a couple scriptures for you. Proverbs 18:1 says, the tongue has the power of life and death. And then another one is Proverbs 12:25. An anxious heart weighs a man down, but a kind word cheers him up. And those would fit into, those 2 scriptures fit into, the way what we say. Now, we all need to be kind.
Yeah.
You just read that about
Right.
God's love. But some people just blossom. It just means the world to them when you say, that was a great job, or I appreciate the way you made my favorite dinner, or something like that.
Yeah.
So we all like encouraging words, but people with this love language really,
It really builds them up.
it builds them up.
Another thing that I've learned in his book about the love languages is that there's a counterweight to that. In other words, if someone's love language is words of affirmation, you need to be careful in being critical to that person.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like words really build them up, they really feed their heart. When you're critical to that person, they take it maybe a little more too hard. They take it a little more deeply. And so that gives you an insight on how to relate to that person based on that.
Okay.
Now, the one that I'm going to talk about next is about acts of service. Acts of service. And this is kind of that phrase, well, actions speak louder than words.
Yes.
And, sometimes the best thing you can do to show your love for someone is to go out and mow the yard.
Yeah.
Or to fix the sink. Or to iron some shirts. Those acts of service, it shows the love that you have for that person in helping them. And a lot of times, that's what people really need. And so for some people, that's what they really respond to, is someone coming along and doing an act of service to help them.
So do you think we have more than one love language? Because acts of service is one of mine, but I think I have 2.
Yeah, I agree. And probably you all would agree too. These are general statements, but they're helpful.
They're helpful.
They're just helpful. But yeah, I think in most cases, and the little profile I do in counseling, they usually rate strong in 1 or 2 areas. And like I say, it's just helpful enough. Another thing, I think it changes too.
Oh.
I think it changes, So there's mine, and the point here is that that doing something for that person will show them, speak to them, maybe louder than any words that you can say. Okay.
All right. The next one, the third love language, is receiving gifts. Maybe you are the kind of person that just when somebody brings you a gift, it just thrills you. No matter what it is, it doesn't have to be expensive. It can be a flower from a child or something. But that is a person who just loves receiving gifts. And sometimes we act out, but you already said this earlier, but sometimes we have one son that just brings gifts. And so we know that that's his love language, that he loves to receive gifts because he gives gifts. And again, it doesn't have to be expensive, but
yeah, I think Nancy hit on something that we had not written down here, but that's the purpose of the book, because the way that you like to receive love, it's easy to give that, because that's what you expect. We all see life from our perspective, and this helps you come out of your preference and see someone else's need. And so the concept here is, look at how many people receive love different ways, and then you can find the way that speaks to their heart and encourages that child or encourages that friend, because that's what they need most.
I know that lots of times Bill will bring me flowers at school, and I love getting flowers. And some of the girls will say, "Oh, I don't want my husband to bring me flowers. I don't want flowers." They want, something else speaks love to them. And even though gifts is not really one of my major love languages, I do love flowers, and so I always like it. But that's how the different people respond to things like that.
Yeah, and that's why it's not hard fast.
Right.
Even though that's not her primary love language, there's a time that's appropriate for doing that. I remember the first time I did that, and one of the secretaries said, "Oh, you must be in trouble." I said, "No." "Oh, it must be a birthday." "No, just do it."
Just know that I love him.
Yeah, just know they love it. Now, the next one we're going to talk about is this, and it is quality time. Quality time. In other words, in a busy life, in a busy world, we're always, drawn so many different directions. And a person whose love language is quality time, in addition to the words you might say or the gifts you might give, some of the greatest gifts you can give this person is time. And it's undivided time. Time that you're focused on them. And again, this doesn't have to be husband and wife and spouse. If you've got a friend, like a guy, and this guy's been your friend for a long time, the thing you guys may like doing is going out fishing together. And you get out there on that boat, and nothing's distracted, and you're just laughing and having a good time. And that's quality time. And so all of us can learn how to share our love and feelings for one another, and quality time is one of those.
And I have a story that I remembered reading about a mother and her little boy. I think she was putting him to bed, and he said, "Mom, will you lie down with me?" And so, she had a lot to do, had to clean up dinner or whatever, and ironing, but she laid down, and he said, "No, I mean really lay down with me." And she said, "Well, I am," and he said, "No, lie down on the inside." I mean, he could perceive that she was she was just ready to jump up and leave. He wanted her to just really, that togetherness that time, be there.
Yeah, for Nance and I, when we used to drive to Texas together, this is before cell phones, and we would we'd load the boys up usually about 8 o'clock at night, get them in their PJs and put them kind of sleeping in the bed in the car, and we would take off driving, and we would drive for 8 hours, 10 hours, about get to the Texas line, and without any phone calls, without any distraction. That was some of the best time I think we had every year, was making that trip together and just really having that undivided attention to one another. I'll say this, there are some relationships that struggle with this because of the jobs. This is difficult for a military family because requirements of that man or woman is deployment. And so they may be gone for a long time. So what they have to do is compensate. Skype and emails and those things have really helped our military a lot because of this very thing. So sometimes your job requires you to be creative to help meet that friend's or that spouse's love language.
And planning is always a big thing with this one too. I mean, you've got children, you've got baseball games, you've got things to do, and to plan, Friday night we're going out.
Yes, right.
Or, grandma's gonna keep the kids
Yeah,
just for 3 or 4 hours. I mean,
that's right.
So,
that's a good thing.
Quality time. And the last love language is the gift of physical touch. Now, this does not just mean just intimacy. It means a hug. It means pat on the back, holding hands.
Right.
All of those are, excuse me, a part of their love language. We actually have one son that walks in the door, and he kind of he walks over to Bill, and he kind of turns his back, ready for his back rub, just like that. And it's just gotten to be a real joke for us, But I think, one of his love languages is physical touch, that back rub.
So he likes that.
He
That's
does.
good. Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that I would say, Nancy, also tonight is this, and this really changed my perspective on the thought of love. You know, when I was a young man and just getting serious about walking with the Lord, I remember going, I think it was to Second Baptist Church in Houston, and maybe it was John Bassanio, and he wrote a book that says, the title of it, Love is a Choice. And I remember him preaching a message on that when I visited, and I think I got a copy of that book and read it, if I remember right. But you know, that changes your perspective, that love is not just a feeling. In fact, the best kind of love is not founded on feelings. The best kind of love is founded on a choice, and we choose to love, and we choose to love in a way that they can receive that love. And so I think that's really a great way to wrap up tonight's discussion on love, is to say the best kind of love is the love that you choose even when you may not feel like it.
Amen.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, amen. It is good. It is
So
good.
what's one of your love languages? Or what do you score high in?
Let's see. I like
Put 'em on the
quality,
spot.
I like
We didn't talk
quality
about that.
time.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a late night person by nature, and Nancy's an early morning person by nature. So one of the things I learned in our marriage was that if we were gonna, and I value just sitting, for me one of the favorite things is sitting and having coffee and just chatting and visiting. But if I stayed up really late at night, that was hard to do early in the morning. So I kind of adjusted that so that I can make time like that. So I think quality time is one of those.
Good.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, are we ready for some trivia questions
Yeah,
tonight?
let's see what you got.
All right, here we go. All right. What does Simon Peter do for a living before he becomes an apostle?
Fisherman.
He was a fisherman. All right, number 2. In the Gospel of Mark, how does the Virgin Mary learn of her pregnancy? Do you know?
Am I going to have to answer all these?
Oh, well,
An angel spoke to
the
me.
angel Gabriel.
I haven't seen these. Is this quiz?
Okay, here you go.
Oh, man.
Who is Stephen in Acts of the Apostles?
He was the first martyr.
He was.
Yeah, it's first to die for his faith.
Number 4. By what name is Paul of Tarsus known before he begins his missionary activity?
Saul.
Good. And the last one. You know, when we were, never mind. When we went to Israel,
Yeah.
our tour guide, he'd say something, and then he would always say, wait for it,
Yeah.
wait for it. So I was about to say that for you.
Yeah.
According to Paul's formulation in 1 Corinthians, which is the greatest of the imperishable qualities? Hint, hint, we talked about it tonight.
Love.
Love.
Greatest of these is love.
Love.
I didn't know you picked that for our trivia tonight. That's good.
There's a lot of things you just don't know about me.
I'm learning all the time. We just want to say thank you again for watching tonight.
Yes, thank you.
And it's always a joy. We really look forward to this time. And if you want to give us any comments, as we close, just feel free to do that. Maybe you have a favorite verse on love, and we'd love to see that. That would be great. Just type that in for us. And of course, you can always go to unionhillbaptist.org, and my email is listed there. I'd love to hear from you. And God bless you. Thank you for watching tonight.
Thank you.